So I'm going to show you a workflow on how to move images from your camera to your Mac or PC. So to access your pictures, you can take the card out of your camera and place it in a card reader and plug the card reader into your computer. The other way you can do it is with the card in the camera, you can simply use the cable supplied with your camera and plug the camera into your PC. Now on a PC, you plug the camera in and you'll get a sound similar to that. And you usually get a dialog box that pops up, especially in Windows 10. So the way to access the files real quickly is you can simply hit the Windows key and the E key, which will open the File Explorer key, and then you can scroll through and look for your camera or card. In this case, mine is the D850, so that when I click on it, it'll open up the card inside. Inside the card, there'll be two folders. First, there'll be DCIM folder. All digital cameras have a folder called DCIM. And inside that will be folders based on what camera you used. In this case, I used two different cameras with this card. I'm going to use the D750 folder just to show you. So what you can do is you can go to your desktop or wherever you would like to save your folders. I'm going to use the desktop for ease, and I'm just going to simply make a new folder. I'm going to call this Photos from my camera. Something simple. Okay, and then I'm going to go to the folder where the photos are, and I'm going to select all the photos. I'll select the first one and hit Command A or Control A, highlight it and drag it right to the folder. And it will copy the images to that folder. And the reason I copy the images to the folder is I don't like to modify any of the files on the card itself, because I like to keep them fresh in case something happens, and I like to keep the photos on my hard drive. You can put this on any hard drive you want simply by dragging it where you need to. Now I'm going to close this. Now on a Mac it's a little different. So on a Mac it's similar but a little bit different. So when you plug your camera in or your card reader in and the card is in the device, it should show up on your desktop. If it doesn't, just simply go to your Finder, to Preferences, and click on General, and make sure that hard disks, external drives, CDs, and connected server are all checked for General, and then it'll show up on your desktop. In the sidebar as well, just make sure that all the locations are checked as well, because then in the sidebar it's easy to find them as well. So then you just close it and it's good. So if you then double click on the card, and you see it's DCIM just like on a PC, and then you'll see folders inside. You can simply drag the folder to the desktop if you want, and then rename it, or make a folder on the desktop and name it that way. I'm going to just drag it to the desktop and rename it afterwards. So there, it takes a second to copy, and then I'm just going to simply rename, right click on the folder and rename it. And I'm going to say Photos from Camera. So normally when I do this, I usually date the folders just so I know when I can find the photos easier later at a later date. So, but in this case, I'm just going to make it. Now, with the Photoshop subscription you get from the college for being in this class, you get access to a multiple number of different Adobe programs. And we're going to use two of the many programs that you're allowed. We're going to use obviously Photoshop. The other one is Adobe Bridge. And Adobe Bridge comes free with any subscription that you get. Adobe Bridge just simply bridges the photos from your computer into Photoshop. So go ahead and open up Creative Cloud and install Adobe Bridge. So when you open Bridge for the first time, it may ask you to sign in. It may ask you to install some plugins. Go ahead and say yes to everything. And if it asks you to sign in, simply sign in with your SC4 username and password, and select student or school organization instead of personal. So when you open Bridge for the very first time, it could look like this. Or it could look like this one, which is all dark. Those are two different versions of Bridge. So this is Bridge 2020. We'll just use this one. So Bridge will look like this. So looking at Bridge, the main panel in the front is the content panel. That is what your photos will be located, where they will be located. On the side here, there's a preview. There's metadata over here on this side. There's also on this side, there's folders and favorites. Favorites, you can simply drag folders there, and they're for easy, quick access. Where folders, the folder side, you can actually go in and find the folder where your photos are located. In this case, I put it on the desktop, and it was called Photos from Camera. So if I click on it and double click, there they open up, and you can see all the different photos there. So there's a zoom tool on the bottom here. You can make them bigger, or you can click on one of them, say this one, and the preview panel here will pop up. It'll give you all the information on the photo here. And there's keywords here underneath this tab where you can add keywords if you're cataloging things. But I'm going to go back to the metadata now. There's on the dividers, you can change it, and you can actually make the windows different sizes if you so choose to. So on these photos, if you right click on a photo, it'll give you a lot of different options. You can reveal it in Finder, that shows you exactly where the photo is located. You can open it in RAW. You can set it to open in Photoshop. You can batch rename things. You can highlight different photos and then hit rename. It'll allow you to rename the photos. It lets you export. It lets you do a lot of different things. So the main thing we're going to do is when we click on a photo, we're going to right click and open in Camera Raw or open in Adobe Photoshop. And this is just a great program that allows you to bridge from your PC or Mac into Photoshop. Allows you to see all the thumbnails, so you can pick the photos quickly. So let me just show you one more workspace here. So that's Essentials. Film Strip is very similar. So Film Strip gives you a strip on the bottom where you can look at your different photos here, and it shows the preview. Now, if you're doing anything, you can't click on here. If you click on here, it will just zoom in. But if you right click on these, it still gives you all the different options that it did in the Essentials folder. And it's just depending on the workspace that you like to work in. The main two we'll work in again is Film Strip and Essentials. Now on a Mac, that's very similar. The font may look a little different, but all the windows are set up exactly the same way. And that's the beauty of Adobe, is you can go from a Mac to a PC relatively easily. Generic. So on a Mac, it's a little bit easier to open things. I'm going to simply drag this folder right to Bridge and drop it on the icon in the dock, and it will open up Bridge. And you can see it's resizing my window quickly. It looks pretty much the same as a PC. The breadcrumb is up here. Because I dragged it directly on Bridge, it automatically opens the folder that I had dragged down there. So it's a real shortcut and it's a lot easier. Now, I meant to say this before about Bridge in the PC version, but in the Mac, you can open multiple photos from the desktop by just clicking on them and opening them, and then it'll open them in Photoshop. On a PC, it's not the case. You can't open multiple photos very easily. So Bridge is a great way to be able to open multiple photos. Just click and either hit Command or Control, depending. Command on a Mac, Control on a PC, and you can select the different photos and then just simply open them that way. So you can open multiple photos at once. And this is great if you're doing a lot of batch toning, like toning multiple photos that are very similar. And it's also a great way to open a JPEG in Camera Raw. And we will go through that later on in class, because Camera Raw is a really great program to tone photos, even if the photo is not a RAW file. So that's a Mac. I'll probably switch throughout the semester between the two. Most people are probably on PCs. I, by default, use a Mac, but I have PC at home. It's just my work computer is a Mac. So I'm going to go over a couple just basic tools in Photoshop itself. So I'm going to go in and pick a different folder. Okay, I'm just going to pick this folder just as an example. It's from a game I shot last winter. A girls' basketball game. So you can, if I click on a photo, you can see them big. So I'm just going to pick, say, this photo here. So I'm going to right click on it and I can just do open with, and Photoshop is by default. So if I open that, it'll open up Photoshop. And here's the photo itself. So there's an adjustment panel over here. And I can go through and make adjustments here if I want. There's a couple different ways you can do it. I tend to favor levels. There's a brightness and contrast, and there's levels, there's curves, there's a lot of different ones. They all do different things. Now, if you click on levels, it'll bring up, and I'll make this a little bit bigger, a histogram. This is the dark point. This is the white point in the photograph. And because I've already toned it, it's pretty good. If anything, I might adjust the white point. This is the mid-tone, so if you shift the mid-tones one way, it'll shift it and make the mid-tone darker so the whole photo gets lighter. In this case, you could go either way. I'm going to just simply make this back to where it was, 1.10. And that, which is exactly in the middle because I already set it that way. I could take the highlights and highlight it, and what this does is it clips all the information from here over, clips it, and you can see it starts to get blown out here. So you can adjust things like this. You can adjust it. Now a couple quick things about this is it'll also let you do color. So if you do pull down, there's a red, blue, and green channels. You can play with those and see how that works for you. Now, this will set a black point, meaning if I click on this eyedropper and I click on a black point somewhere in the photo, it'll assure that that is pure black. There's no detail. So if, let's say, I click here, you'll see it changes the photo quite a bit. And I'll go back. See, here's the normal. Let's go back to normal. And if I click a black point, you can see the darker areas get set. I can also set a white point. And white point is kind of neat because it also not only will set the white, it'll also set the color in the correct manner as well. So you can click here and that'll be then a white point and it'll change your histogram. And you can also set a midpoints too. So if you want a middle point, you can set it as well. And again, it'll change the histogram completely. Now, if you use the adjustment panel up here, what it does is it will set an adjustment level or layer right here. And we'll talk more about layers in the future, but this layer will affect this layer. So the nice thing about it is if you uncheck it, you can see what it looked like before and then what it looks like with the adjustment layer. And let's say you make another one, you want to adjust the color. So if you go to color balance, which is this balance one here, we click on this, we could set your color to be a lot different, you know. And again, it is another level layer here that affects this bottom layer. So if you click on this, and oh, I don't like that, you can actually take this layer and just throw it away if you want. I'm going to go back to that color balance again, and overall, if anything that's just slightly a little bit on the yellow side, we could go in and adjust the levels there. And again, see what it looked like? It looked like this before. Now it looks like this. By simply checking the eye and unchecking the eye, it will allow you to hide or adjust the layer. So if you like it that way, you can leave it like that. Let's say you don't like it that way, but you need to change it still. You can just simply double click on the icon and go in and back and change it back to however you wanted it. So let's say you think it was just a hair too much blue, but you still wanted to add some blue. Again, there it is, and you can go back and forth and check it. So when you're done and you want to save this as a JPEG, when you go to File, Save As, it's going to try to make it a Photoshop because you have multiple layers. JPEGs only support one layer. So what you would do is select File, Save Type As, you select JPEG, and it's going to warn you it's going to save a copy here because it's going to flatten everything and make it all one layer. So if you go to open it, those layers will not be there. But if you save it as a Photoshop document, it will keep those layers so you can go back and adjust them later on. And to close the photo, simply exit out here. On a Mac, you can go File and Close. And I'm just not going to save this because it was just an example for you.